Part 18, Chapter 35. Johnson finally pinpointed the weapons using what he called his glorified Geiger counter, a radiation detector with a sophisticated directional indicator. "We were getting screwed up by the residual uranium deposits in the hills," Johnson said as he consulted a map. "I don't care about that," Deakins said. He was at the wheel and driving fast. "Where are they?" "According to this," said Johnson, "they've gone to an area in the northwest, about 4 miles from here. There's not a hell of a lot there, just low hills and an old—" "I know where Hale is." Deakins interrupted him and smiled. "I know where he's gone, and the joke's going to be on him." Johnson looked at Kelly, who said, "The Major went over this whole area with Max. If he says he knows where Hale is, he does. And if he says there's going to be a joke on Hale, there will be." As they rocked across the uneven ground, Deakins wanted to laugh at the irony of it all. Only he couldn't laugh. Not while his nukes were in Hale's possession. Still, he wasn't unduly worried. As he thought back over the 13 years he had known Hale, he couldn't remember a single instance of the guy being unpredictable, or having a pair that clanged, or showing initiative, or even following through on something he wasn't ordered to do. There was nothing. "The guy's got no afterburners," he told himself. What had happened today was an accident, a fluke. Maybe he was showing off for the chick. Pritchett was sitting in the passenger seat, looking out the front window. There was a streak of ash along the left side of his neck, through which a stream of perspiration had cut a clean, wriggly line. "Wait a second," he said, turning to Deakins. "I think I've got it. Having Hale set this vehicle on fire was part of the plan all along." Sitting behind Deakins, Kelly said, "Mr. Pritchett." "No, listen." He laid his hand back on the headrest. "The soot makes it harder to spot from space. And the fact that he has the nukes and we don't? No problem. He's actually got a split personality and you've cut a deal with his alter ego and—" The rigid outside of Deakins' right hand lashed out swiftly and violently, smashing against Pritchett's Adam's apple. Pritchett's eyes went wide as eggshells and rolled towards Deakins, shocked and imploring. He gagged and clawed at his throat, and the shock turned to slitty-eyed panic as he discovered that he couldn't breathe. Flopping around in his seat and throwing his neck against his headrest, Pritchett turned blue as he struggled to get air through his shattered windpipe. After nearly 2 minutes of writhing and helpless gasping, he slumped against the door. His eyes and mouth were both open. His chest wasn't moving. Kelly said, I thought it was bad form to kill your investors." Deakins shrugged. "They wouldn't have let him come with us if he wasn't expendable. Like Kleenex, you know?" Kelly looked as if he wanted to disagree, but thought better of it. Johnson just stared at Pritchett. "I woke up this morning having never seen a guy get killed before," Johnson said. "Now I've seen 2. Deakins said, "I woke up this morning never having killed a man before. This bunghole's 1, and Hale will be number 2. I mean, I've dropped bombs on Baghdad." He half smiled as his mind replayed a fond memory. "But never face to face." He glanced over at the gaping corpse. "Frankly, I don't know what the big deal is, I really don't." "There!" Kelly shouted as they rounded a curve. Deakins followed his pointing finger off to the right. There was the Humvee. Damn it! Why had he let himself daydream like that? He twisted the wheel, swung towards the vehicle, and saw the blasted doors and the mine entrance and the winch cable. He knew then and there that while Hale may not be over-endowed in the balls department, he did have a little plan going here. And from the look of things, it was a good one. Too bad for Hale that it was not quite good enough. Chapter 36. As Hale and Terry descended, Hale used the flashlight sparingly, trying to ascertain how high above the ground they were. After a while, the air got colder and thicker, the sense of claustrophobia greater, and he kept the flashlight on just to chase away the willies. He hoped the batteries didn't run out, or they'd be screwed. Now that he thought of it, he also hoped the cable didn't run out. In his haste to get down here, it hadn't occurred to him that this section of shaft could be deeper than 200 feet. The cable was 250. 10 of that was used in getting them up over the side of the shaft, and it'd be a kick in the head if they were left dangling here. Or worse, if Deakins arrived and started winching them back up, like King Kong hauling in the vine with Fay Ray and Bruce Cabot hanging on. Despite the cold, he was sweating freely, and it was with enormous relief that he saw the flashlight beam stop vanishing into the darkness and hit the floor of the shaft. As the bombs neared the ground, Hale handed the flashlight to Terry and jumped down. He landed right beside a horizontal crosscut. He took a moment to utter a prayer of appreciation as he stood under the bombs to ease their arrival. The irony of thanking God for delivering weapons of mass destruction was not lost on him. When the bombs were just a few feet up, Terry hopped down and turned the light on them. As soon as they were down, Hale unhooked the cable. He took a moment to lash it around a large boulder, sharp-edged from long ago blasting. "What are you doing?" she asked. "If Deakins finds the Humvee," Hale said, "I don't want him withdrawing the cable and leaving us stranded." "I didn't think of that," Terry said. "How long is this going to take anyway?" "Well," Hale said, "only a few minutes once we're in position, and we only have to set off one bomb. The other will be buried under about 1 billion tons of rock. But we'll need to go deeper into the mine first." "What?" "It'll limit the amount of radiation released into the atmosphere." "How much deeper?" Terry asked. "Not very much. Let's take one down that crosscut," Hale said, "and see how far we can go." "This is great," Terry said. She ducked into the tunnel and put the flashlight down, pointing into the crosscut so they could see ahead. Then she ran back and helped Hale put the first bomb in. As they dragged the weapon, dirt rained down from the ceiling. "We're going to die down here, and if we're not blown up, we're going to be buried in a mine cave-in. Or I'll have a heart attack." "At least we'll be together," Hale cracked. Terry made a point of changing the subject. "How is this going to work?" she asked. Between pants, Hale said, "I'll use the keypad." He stopped, moved the flashlight ahead, and saw a tool nook about 10 feet away. "In there," he said, pointing. Terry stood, arched her back, and groaned. "Nukes have 2 triggers," Hale said as they started up again. "Altimeter and impact. The altimeter will set off at a certain altitude in the air." "Are you serious? I always thought it's supposed to hit the ground and then go boom." Hale shook his head. "Optimally, you go for the air blast. More damage that way. 3,000 feet up is best. You get 5 times more destruction than at 6,000 feet. Metals vaporize. I get the picture," she said. "Sorry," he said. "This is business for me. The backup trigger is impact driven. If all else fails, the bomb will go off when it hits the ground." They stopped by the niche and rolled the bomb in so that the panel was facing up. Terry got the flashlight and shined it down while Hale worked the keypad. He punched the enter key. "There. The impact trigger is armed." That's it? Terry asked, backing away. You expected a chirp? It's not a car alarm. And don't worry, it's not going to go off if you bump into it. It'd need to fall a good 30 or 40 feet. Then how will you detonate it? Bring the light closer, okay? Terry did so with obvious reluctance, and Hale began to work the keypad. I'm going to reset the altimeter trigger for 100,000 feet. Then I'm going to tell the computer that the clock is running 30 minutes fast. When 30 minutes are up, the system will reboot. The altimeter will read that the bomb's below 100,000 feet and, well, boom. Understand? Not in the least, Terry said. Hale finished entering the new program, then he stood. It means that as soon as I enter the numbers into the clock, we're going to have 30 minutes to get clear of here. If not, we'll be indistinguishable from coal dust. Got it, Terry said. So what are you waiting for? Hale said, just running down a mental checklist to make sure I didn't forget anything. But do you know what you're doing? I mean, we will have 30 minutes to get clear, right? Hale said, pilots who fly with nuclear weapons have to know these babies. If something like this happens, we've got standing orders, and I quote, to retrieve if possible, disable if necessary, and destroy if we must. And destroy I must. Now, I've just set the clock and... Suddenly, the glowing numbers of the ECU clock flickered. The readout went blank, and Hale stood staring at it as if he had just been told he was getting into the ring with Mike Tyson.